So happy to have you joining us today for our fourth session of our Parkinson's TV Long Road to Hope. And today we're going to be hearing from Nikita Krielaart, who is a person with young onset Parkinson's disease from the Netherlands. She's featured in the full-length film, The Long Road to Hope, and her video dropped, I believe, on Monday. So hopefully there's some people maybe joining in from the Netherlands, but I would love it if you would open up your chat box and give us a shout out, because we love to know where people are joining us from. And I do know that we get people from all across the country and even outside of the US. So before we get started, just a little bit, my name is Anissa Mitchell and I'm with PMD Alliance. And if you will open up your chat, that's where we're going to have our conversation today, and you can ask your questions. We're going to show the video, and then we're going to have a conversation both with Nikita and with Brian. So just a little brief background, Nikita is going to be sharing her story today of being diagnosed with Parkinson's at age 20 and how this has impacted her life, and from managing energy that others her age take for granted to looking forward to the future. And then Brian McElwain's a clinical psychologist who was diagnosed at age 41, and he actually runs PMD Alliance's young onset Parkinson's disease community. So we're excited to have Brian be a part of this conversation as well. And then we have Iyad, who's from the University of Rochester, oversees the Parkinson's TV. Hi, Iyad. So he's going to be the one in charge of showing us the video, and I think that he probably might have a couple of things to say before he gets started. So Iyad, I'm going to hand this over to you.
Thank you, Anissa, and I'm glad to see everybody here. This is our fourth event with a very special feature on the documentary. Nikita, great to see you here as well. I'll just begin by sharing my screen here and showing just a little 2-slide summary of what Parkinson TV is and its origins. So there we go. So Parkinson's disease is, ending Parkinson's disease is basically the whole idea behind this third season of Parkinson TV. And our motto and our theme is 12 extraordinary individuals, one reviving mission. And we really wanted to capture firsthand accounts of people living with the disease and the ways in which they've adapted to it. And it's inspired by the book by Dr. Ray Dorsey, Michael Okun, and Dr. Boz Bloom, as well as the voices of the people in it to highlight their adaptation through what we call the PACT, the PACT, which is Prevention, Advocacy, Care, and Treatment. And Nikita's story would obviously cover all of these things. However, the one that I would like to highlight, and that our film, The Long Road to Hope, highlights, is her advocacy, since she is aware of the fact that there is a perception of Parkinson's disease being attributed to older people, and realizing her unique case is not the exclusive one in the world. She decided to share her story with everybody, and that is a pillar of advocacy. And the next slide kind of shows the origins of this series, from which the episode I will in a little bit show you guys. So it all started back in 2017 as a collaboration between Dr. Boz Bloom and Dr. Ray Dorsey at the University of Rochester. And for seasons 1 and 2, we're starting out by just having experts discuss Parkinson's in general, and the general attributes of it, the symptoms and things you can do, such as exercise, medication, and nutrition. With season 2, we started to talk about the mental health conditions of the disease. And that's when we launched the Profiles in Parkinson's, kind of taking the focus from the experts more to the people living with the disease. And for season 3, we really wanted to capitalize on that. So for the full-length documentary, we decided to take all these voices and wave them together in a way to highlight the PACT, the PACT, accompanied by expert commentary by Drs. Boz Bloom and Ray Dorsey. And aside from the 1-hour-long feature film we had, we've been releasing shorter segments or episodes, you might call them, weekly. And this week's was Nikita's. And there's two more upcoming in the next 2 Mondays. And I'm also looking forward to our discussion with Becca coming up on July 1st. For today, I'm really excited to show the episode for Nikita and hear her again live talking to us about her story. Thank you.
Thanks, Iyad. So I guess we're ready to show the video and have the conversation.
So I will share my screen from the other account. Kelly, would you mind giving my other Iyad account logged in here the screen sharing access? Thank you.
Going to university, entering your 20s, can be an exciting time of self-discovery. It's where most of our coming-of-age stories begin to take shape. Nikita Krielaart was on that path, and soon her world closed in around her, and the smallest of tasks became effortful challenges.
In everyday life, I have to think about everything what I do, like this or that, because I will be very tired, so very difficult. Hi, I'm Nikita, I'm 24 years old and I have Parkinson's. I was diagnosed at 20 years old. I was on a ski holiday with my mother in Austria, and the first day of my ski lesson I had like a tremor in my hand, but at first I thought it was nerves because of my first ski lesson. And then since the holiday, my symptoms were getting worse. I had trouble with tying up my buttons, muscle stiffness in my legs, so I went to the doctor. And at first I was diagnosed with essential tremor, and then I got like medicines for that. So then I went to the neurologist, and then I started very early with levodopa. That was like a life-changing moment because all my tremors were gone. So that was like, yeah, this is Parkinson's.
Diagnosed at 20 years old, Nikita is an extremely rare case of young onset Parkinson's. The gut-wrenching news of her diagnosis stunned her family and friends.
They were also shocked, like, how could that be at that age? And I went home and I thought, let me just go for a walk or just go biking a lot of kilometers. If you are 20 like me when I was diagnosed, you're in a really active life with a lot of things, but also growing as a person. Because of the Parkinson's, I had like did a lot of sports. I really love to dance and hockey.
Recognizing her especially rare case, Nikita turned to educate others through advocacy.
When it was World Parkinson's Day in the Netherlands, the Parkinson's TV asked everyone to make a little short movie of themselves and just tell something about themselves, and that was the first thing I did. And after that, I became very active with make Parkinson's more public. At this moment, I'm working in my own house and painting the walls and stuff to make it my own home. I have to take levodopa 4 times a day. In total, I have like 14 pills now. But I'm very happy that they are here and I'm able to take them, so I can do my things that I have to do throughout the day. I live day by day. I see every day like, oh, these are my opportunities, and if it works out for me today, that's really fine. But Parkinson's just change in a second, so that's very difficult to look at the future, but I just have hope and think every day is a new day, so that gives me energy to just look at the future positive. Just go easy on yourself and take your time with discovering everything. If it is really Parkinson's, then search things about it and learn from other people and ask them about their experience. Go easy on yourself because it will be a hard time for you, so just take it day by day.
It's difficult not to be touched by the story of Nikita. She is aged 24. She received the diagnosis at age 20. It's important to realize that Parkinson's is not a disease of elderly people. She was 20 years of age, and at that age, and we know this from published work, misdiagnoses are common, and her story is a good example of that. A diagnosis of Parkinson's at such a young age interferes with your future, with your perspectives. And what Nikita is describing so wonderfully is how she still needs to grow as a person. You are not ready as a 21-year-old. I'm not saying that a 60 or a 70-year-old is ready, but if you're 20, you still need to develop and mature as a person. And now you've got this diagnosis of Parkinson's, and that interferes with your perspectives, your hopes, your future. And at the same time, Nikita gives all of us a very powerful message. Go easy on yourself and maintain hope. Live day by day, and through hope, keep working on your development as an individual and in shaping your own future. And to my mind, I think Nikita is wholly inspirational and should provide that type of hope and perspective for all of us.
Thanks for sharing that video. So we have Nikita with us and Brian, and I just want to say how shocking it is to see someone so young being diagnosed at age 20. That is, I'm sure, a shock to your family. Can you talk a little bit about that process that you went through, Nikita, of getting the diagnosis? I know your video said that you were initially diagnosed with essential tremor. And I know that there's probably other people that maybe have had a little bit of delay in getting their diagnosis, maybe misdiagnosed with other things. Can you share a little bit about that experience and how long it actually took?
Yeah, first of all, hi everyone and welcome. How long it took? It took like a year to discover if it's really Parkinson's because of all the medical research, because I'm at that 20 years old, and then they just didn't really think about Parkinson's right away. So they have to take a lot of blood tests and scans to really make sure it's Parkinson's. So it took really like a year till I got the diagnosis of Parkinson's. But a funny fact is when I went to the neurologist for the second time, I straight away got like levodopa, and in like 30 minutes, my tremor was like completely gone. So that was, yeah, for me and the doctors, kind of just confirming that it is Parkinson's. So yeah, but they really have to take like a lot of tests just to make sure.
And Brian, you initially gone for physical therapy for shoulder pain. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. Did you have a similar situation of delay?
The delay was more on my side of things than on the doctor's side of things, in the sense that I had relatively recently, so when I was 40, I moved across the country to take a new job, and my dad and I moved us across the country, moved up our furniture and everything else. So I thought I had just injured my shoulder, maybe pinched a nerve or something, and that just kept dragging on and on. It was about a year before I actually went to talk to a doctor about it. And the doctor was puzzled by it and would send me to physical therapy. The physical therapist, after a few sessions, he told me later, he was pretty clear pretty quickly that it was likely Parkinson's. But he didn't tell me that. He referred me back to my doctor to get a referral to a neurologist. And when I went to talk to the neurologist, he shook my hand, and within 5 minutes, he said, "You have Parkinson's disease. We need to make another appointment." And I had to do a bunch of tests and things like that. It took me a long time to accept it. What he saw so clearly, I saw, because I was then also in the process of moving again. I saw 4 different neurologists in the span of about 9 months before I sort of gave up and started to believe that I did have Parkinson's.
So Nikita, you talk about how people kind of consider Parkinson's an older person's disease. Bas Bloom mentioned that as well. And that you are really interested in advocacy work. Can you talk a little bit about that and what you've been doing?
Yeah, sure. I really want to change the fact of people still thinking it's an old people disease. And why I really want to do that is because nowadays you see a lot of people like age 30 or 40 with the disease. So it's a long time not an old people disease anymore. So I really want to use my voice and my story to inspire people and just encourage other people to share their story if they're willing to, and just help each other by just listening to their story and helping each other out with what they make through the journey of Parkinson's.
And Brian, you run the young onset Parkinson's community. So I'm sure you've heard lots of different stories and has had a lot of conversations around this experience. What are you hearing from others?
What am I hearing from others? Are you thinking in a particular realm, or just?
Just in trying to shift away from people's perception, it's just for an older person.
Yeah, that image, that line drawing that's so famous, the souped old man with walking with the cane. That was a big part of why I was so shocked. I was so doubting of this as a possibility for me. I was 41, as I think you said before, when I was diagnosed, but it had never crossed my mind that it was possible for someone like me. So I don't want to say it's just out there. Those people do that. Those people have that mistaken idea. I think all of us do, even including people that have been in part of this community for a long time. So it's something that, because it's more common among older folks, it's hard for us to accept that it's possible for ourselves, and it's hard for even doctors to come to the conclusion, I think, sometimes that their younger patients might have this issue. So there's a lot of education that needs to be done before I think we get adequate screening and treatment for this disease.
Absolutely. And Nikita, you talked a bit in your video about, you're young, 20 when you were diagnosed. So you were in school. There was a lot of life experiences that you haven't had the privilege of yet, or at that age, that some that may be diagnosed older had. Figuring out your career and family and just all those things. Can you talk about how you navigated all that? And because you really are such a positive and optimistic person, as we also hear a lot about, the hope and being self-compassionate. How did you get there? And, what was that like for someone at that age?
Yeah, it was very difficult for me at that age because I was like very young and active in life. So suddenly everything just stopped at the time, and I just have to rearrange everything. And I used to go to parties with my friends in the weekends, and I wasn't able to do that anymore. And just doing a lot of sports and just being really active in life and just enjoying life. And then suddenly everything just went like, oh, I have to slow down everything. I have to think about everything, what I do. What if I do this? Can I also just later on the day go to a friend or something? I wasn't able to do a lot of stuff anymore because I was like very tired, and I really got like a lot of symptoms already in the beginning. So that was very difficult to also experience everything, but also just yeah, give everything like an emotion. It was like really a shock, but I have to just go through it because it wasn't really like just a little bit settling down or something. So I wasn't able to get used to everything. So it was like a roller coaster for me. All kinds of emotions, shock, the sadness, sometimes also anger, because I was really frustrated that I used to always do a lot of sports, and suddenly I couldn't do that anymore. So that really frustrated me. Like, why is my body doing this? Well, in my head, I think I just can do it all, like all of the things, but I wasn't able to do that. So it was like really a roller coaster of all kinds of emotions.
Mm-hmm. So maybe a little bit of grieving in there of what you thought your future was going to be like versus what the reality is.
Yeah, exactly. And just also, I wasn't really like knowing the disease that good at the time. So I really was like searching a lot of stuff about Parkinson's, and yeah, everything was like a big question mark for me because I didn't knew at the time what will I expect and how will it develop and all kinds of stuff. So it was really like unsure for me, and still the future is still unsure because you never know how a day will be. Like one day you can do everything and you do too much on that day, and that other day you have to pay it all back because you think at the time you're like superhero and you can do everything. So yeah, still just living day by day.
And I'm curious how your family responded to this diagnosis and your friends. How have they responded?
My family, they were like really in shock also, but at the same time they were like, okay, we just going to look at things, what can you do, and not in thinking like, okay, this you can't do anymore, this you can't do anymore. So just looking like positive to all of kind of stuff. And to my friends, I was like kind of worried for their reaction, like will they still will be my friend, and wouldn't they going to be mad at me if I just cancel like appointments with them? But they were just like so kind and sweet to me, like you're just the same for us still, and if you're not able to go with us, that's all right. And they were really loving, so that's very nice. And during this time of my Parkinson's disease, I also got like new friends and connections I've made. So I'm very blessed to have them. And suddenly, luckily, they also are here, some of them. So that's very nice.
You got your support team with you.
Yes, I've got my support team with me.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I've heard from other people say that, you know, they've created new friendships, maintained others obviously from before, but had the opportunity to meet people they might not have met otherwise, and they became really good friends. Brian, I'm curious about your experience and all that we discussed so far, your family's reaction, your reaction, where you are with those things.
Yeah, well, as I was saying a little bit earlier, my biggest reaction was disbelief. Um, um, and then soon after, I mean, I guess there are lots of things that going on at any given time, but soon after the disbelief, there was plenty of anger or disappointment or grief, all those kinds of things, not being able to believe that this could happen to me. And but pretty early on, I had the thought that why not me? I mean, we often ask why me when something like this happens, but well, what makes me immune to? Why should I be immune to this? I mean, no, so many people in the world deal with this kind of thing. Why should I have to deal with it? And that was really a huge shift for me when I was able to think that and hold on to that kind of perspective, that I'm just as vulnerable and human as anyone else. And so getting out of that why me kind of position helped me to think about, okay, so why not me? And what do I have to bring to this that maybe other people might not have skills to deal with this? And what can I contribute to help other people deal with it? But for example, thinking about my psychology background, how can I use this to be helpful to the wider community? And so that's part of why I wanted to start this young onset Parkinson's group, our community, through PMD Alliance. But I also, sort of going back to something that Nikita was talking about earlier, and to sort of a different language. I was before this and have since become more interested in mindfulness, an attitude of mindfulness, which is sort of boils down to sort of being here now and dealing with this situation, as opposed to sort of getting off in your head and worries about the future or regrets about the past. What am I dealing with today? Because I don't know what tomorrow holds, and what's gone behind certainly informs me, but it's past. So what is here in front of me now? What can I do now? What do I need to address now? So often we sort of escape, run away from what's right in front of us by worrying about the future or regretting things in the past. And this disease has, for me, sort of forced me to take that present moment focus and live each day more fully than I think I would have before.
And I've heard other people find those silver linings, and I feel like that can be a very helpful mechanism, regardless of what it is you're dealing with. You know, people that were maybe not dealing with Parkinson's, but dealing with COVID had to find silver linings for, you know, that period of time we were all shut down and isolated, and there were some. So we're getting questions. How do you maintain your positivity? I think you sort of talked about that, that mindfulness does help, but also, you know, Nikita, you talked a lot about not being hard on yourself and practicing some self-compassion. That's not always easy because, you know, we have this idea of what people should be doing, way they should look, way they should present themselves. And I think that's sort of intertwined with some of the topics of stigma of those, you know, of how you present to people and what people think of you if you're dealing with something that's not typical. Can you talk about how you arrived there? Because I'm sure it didn't happen overnight. I'm sure people are, maybe some are in the middle of trying to get there, and it is an ongoing process for all of us, but you seem to have a really good attitude about this. Could you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, of course. How do I explain this? It's like very easy to say, just be positive and just do this and do that. But why I have this positive energy is because I get like really deep lows, and the disease goes pretty fast by me. So every time I'm at that low point and I think like how much worse will it be and I'm still able to get me out of those situations, and I'm still strong and fighting through Parkinson's, and that gives me like positive energy. Like, hey, I'm still able to fight this disease somehow, because we are never going to be able to win this disease. Although if there will be a wonder, like a medicine for this disease, but it's not really easy, and that's my thing in life. Just go day by day, because if I'm going to make a very lot like a list of plans I want to do, I know I'm not able to check all those things, because I don't know how I will be functioning like in an hour or 2 hours or 5 minutes, because Parkinson's is like it's just a disease you can't get grip on, because it will change every minute. So you have to enjoy every tiny little moment of joy, or something you overcome, or you are coming out of that low point, to realize you are that strong, and surround yourself with people who are mean the world to you. So you have like a little family to hold on to if you are not able to see the positive things.
Well, and you got a comment from Els, says that I'm lucky to have Nikita in my life. She inspires me, and we are bonded spiritually. So that's a beautiful type of support.
Yeah, it's very sweet.
That's awesome. And really, you touched on mindfulness in general, because I mean, literally, you have to live in the present, because you can't control what might be happening 5 minutes from now, 10 minutes from now, next week. So that's a really good way to practice. So we have some really good questions in here. So one of the things is, I was curious about your experiences of working with the medical community as a young onset for both, but there was one in particular for you, Nikita, about whether you're on disability from the Netherlands. If they have that, do they support medically if you're not working? Because you mentioned in your video that you weren't working at this time.
What do you mean with this question? I don't.
So I'm sorry. Yes. Does your country in the Netherlands, do they provide assistance if you're not able to work?
Yes, they do. You've got like volunteer jobs also, and the Parkinson's Foundation in the Netherlands, they got also like Parkinson's at Work, so they help you through if you are working or want to work again, or want to start again. But I'm doing like volunteer jobs, so that makes me just setting out of the medical life circle.
And in terms of medical care, do you have like a socialized type of medicine there? Do you have access easily to all the specialists? I know it's different in the US, so I know there's some curiosity there, because even Els was asking Brian what it was like in Tucson. Does people have as much knowledge or care as in the Netherlands? And I'm not sure that we all understand what the healthcare system is like in the Netherlands.
Well, you've got like Parkinson's nurse you can go to, and that's like a step before the neurologist. So if you got like trouble with your bladder or something, got like a lot of infections, you can call or email the Parkinson's nurse and contact her, and she will contact with your neurologist. So it's like a step further, and you don't really have to wait a long time before you have like an appointment with your neurologist. So that's very nice. And also Parkinson's TV in the Netherlands, they discuss like a lot of things like food or medication, all kinds of stuff, and you learn also from that. And you can it's also like a webinar, so you can also send some questions in and stuff.
And they have the Parkinson Net, correct? Isn't that like a website where you can look for specialties that work with Parkinson's?
Yes, also you've got Parkinson's NL, so that's the Netherlands. That's like a big foundation, and Parkinson's Vereniging in the Netherlands, they call it like that. So we got like several things you can Google or just join to get some information.
And people want to know, Amy actually wrote in, wanted to know what your most troubling symptoms are and how they're managed. I know you mentioned that you're like on 14 pills a day. Is that the same still?
Yeah. No, 15, 16, something like that. So the most things I've got trouble with now is like muscle stiffness and restless legs and pain, and also trouble with sleeping. And the bladder infections, that's really a tough one, because I have one right now again. So I always got them like in 2 weeks something. And I've got like several medications for that, but it's very hard to erase that one. And cognitive symptoms like slowness of thinking, memory loss. I can't do double tasks, so that's very difficult for me. And yeah, but kind of other things, I can't write like that, like how I used to write. I have like a small handwriting now, and constipation, and since 2 months or so, I've got like swallow problems. So I'm not able to take my medicines just with water. I have like medication gel, so the medication will dissolve in my stomach, instead of already, if you take it with another thing, it will, instead of dissolve in my throat, it will dissolve in my stomach. And my arms don't swing when I walk. So yeah, a lot of things, and tremor in my hand. I've got tremors. So yeah, a lot of things I've got.
And Brian, we had a question earlier about whether you're able to stay on your career track, what your most troubling symptoms are, how they're managed, and do you anticipate something like DBS in the future?
Well, I just live in the moment. No, that's an aspiration more than a reality for me. DBS is big and scary to me still. I imagine that I'll have to face it up to it sooner or sometime eventually, but I think there are still things that I can do to optimize my treatment with medication and physical therapy, just movement in general. When I was, I don't know that you're watching me when Nikita's talking, but as she's going through that list of things that she experiences, those are many of the same things for me. I would say that probably my most troubling symptoms over the years have been the GI issues, the constant feeling, or almost constant feeling of being bloated and constipated and just nauseous. So that's been sort of on the front in a lot of ways, but I have, you can see that I've been taking Cinemat for probably 11 years now or so, and I got some of the dyskinesia happening from that, and the sleep issues are huge for me. So there's not really one thing that treats it all except the levodopa, really, that helps me to feel. Often a sign to me that I'm wearing off is that I start to feel the stomach discomfort, even when I haven't eaten recently. So I feel like I'm going everywhere at this point, but not just physically with the dyskinesia, but there's lots of things that you mentioned in those questions. One, I guess, looking back at the question, I worked for 10 years after I was diagnosed. So I was diagnosed when I was 41. I worked for 10 more years as a university counseling center psychologist. And that was a stressful job. It was a job that I trained for much of my adult life, and I really enjoyed it. But being responsible for college students who are suicidal or addicted to drugs or have long trauma histories, those are really stressful. Really, it's really meaningful work, but it was really stressful for me to manage that along with my own issues. And so I retired with a disability retirement from the state of California after 10 years. That was 4 years ago. So when I did retire, my stress levels decreased and my symptoms decreased. Stress is a huge factor for us. And so finding ways to manage the stress and to moderate it and actually make it a good thing in some kind of ways for you is huge with Parkinson's. At least that's my experience. Yeah.
Yeah, stress. Well, that's a hard one to avoid.
Mm-hmm.
Nikita, how does stress impact you? I mean, what is, I guess, your biggest stressor that you're dealing with right now?
If I have to hurry because if I've got a appointment or something, and I just have to hurry like a little tiny bit, I got like a tremor in my hand, and I can't do everything fast. It feels like I'm in slow motion, and I've just got like an extreme tremor in my hand, so everything's just falling out of my hands, and it's really frustrating. So stress is not a fun thing. And also if I'm grocery shopping and people behind me are like, why it's taking so long, and just saying kind of stuff like that, I'm just like, I have Parkinson's, I can't do things fast. So that's kind of difficult situations. And if you say to them, I've got Parkinson's, they always react like, you are too young to have Parkinson's.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, no, I'm not. No, I'm not. So yeah.
Yeah.
You just hit on two big things here. You hit on, again, the need for advocacy, raising awareness that this is not just an older person's disease, one, and the stigma associated with having those sort of symptoms or situations when you're out in public, which then can create more stress, kind of like a vicious cycle. So how do you navigate that? How do you address the stigma associated, I guess, maybe through advocacy, but when you're out there dealing with it, how do people, when you say, no, I do have Parkinson's, it's not just an older person's disease, how do they respond to that?
Well, most of the time they are just very shocked, like how can you have like such type of disease? And when I explain it to them and tell them a little bit of my story, because if I tell my whole story, I'm just going to be there like for an hour. then they are really kind to me and just listening to my story, and it all changes their perspective of Parkinson's. And if I tell them there are a lot of people dealing with Parkinson's at a young age, 30 or 40 years or 50 years, they're like, whoa, I didn't knew that was possible. And they're really going to think about it, and also think about what they said, and just say sorry or something like that. But what helps me during walking in busy situations or doing grocery is just putting one earbud in my ear and just listen to music. And why listen to music? It's because if I listen to music, I hear like a beat, and if you listen carefully, you can walk on that type of rhythm, and you will walk easier, and you will do tasks easier because you have that kind of rhythm. So that's a little trick for me, just to go out in the public just with music, but with one ear in, because otherwise you don't hear stuff. So
it's like a metronome for you.
yes,
Yeah,
it really is. It also helps me when I'm just walking in my home, or I have to go pee in the evening or night when I'm in my bed. I've got like really stiff legs, and I'm not really able to walk that properly. So when I put some music on, then it will go like some smoothly.
I love the comment Els just made. Young Parkies are the pioneers for the future, because a lot of people are going to have Parkinson's, which is a sad story. I totally agree that that's a sad story, but I also agree that young folks like Nikita, I say young because I'm not that young anymore, but
And Brian,
you are willing to get out there and advocate and, speak up.
yeah, for sure. I think I feel like it's my new goal in life to use my voice and my story to help other people and make Parkinson's more public, and just create like a family feeling that you are not alone with Parkinson's, and we are all here for you to help and understand if you have like bad moments, because there are like a lot of them during our Parkinson's journey. And how beautiful is it that we always overcome those low situations, that we always have that strength in us to overcome that and just go further in our lives. That's just so beautiful, the power we have in us, although we have like a really difficult disease.
can I just add to
Please.
by saying there's public need than organizations like PMD Alliance and Park, PD Avengers, all those groups are working on those things. But I also want to point out the ways in which more sort of, it's not really, on the more local advocacy happens when you don't your disease process from people. So it's great that like we have this YOPD community online, and connecting with other folks with Parkinson's is transformative for me in my experience of it, because I was relatively disconnected for the first 6 or 7 years that I had Parkinson's, and changing that to become connected to the community has been huge for me. But I think I worry, I guess, as a psychologist or retired psychologist, I worry that sometimes PD can become someone's whole identity, and they can spend all their time and all their energy. I think it's really important for us to stay connected to the communities before this was a part of our life, and extend those communities too. Just simply being open about experience helps people to understand more about it. So I'm a huge pickleball player, right? And so I spend a lot of time with that. And when I came to Tucson 4 years ago, when I played pickleball, and then eventually noticing that I was moving differently or something else, and I would say that I have Parkinson's. It wasn't about playing pickleball with Parkinson's people. It was about playing pickleball. I like pickleball. Parkinson's doesn't define me. It certainly limits me in some kind of ways, but I can surprise people too. And so just being out there in the world is really important, I think, as part of advocacy, as a part of changing the image and changing people's understanding of who can get Parkinson's and what that looks like, what's possible for us.
I'm glad that you shared that. I think that's a very important point, that it shouldn't define you. It shouldn't be the only thing that you relate to, or it can be sometimes, I would imagine, consuming when you're having to take 15, 16 pills a day and manage the unpredictability of the symptoms, but really working to try to not make that be your only focus is a really good point. And I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't want to give an inaccurate representation of my experience. I should say that Parkinson's, since I was diagnosed, has rarely not been on my mind. It's something I'm constantly aware of. But my best moments are often moments when I forget that I have it. So pickleball is one of those times when I often forget, even though I'm limited when playing it. I'm so focused on what I'm doing. It's like it doesn't define me in those moments. And similarly, my interest in photography that's sort of a meditative mindfulness practice for me. It's something that I can focus totally on and really enjoy and be something other than a Parkie, more than just a Parkie.
And I'm curious, Nikita, if you have something in your life that you do that helps you to kind of set aside being someone with Parkinson's and just live in that moment.
I really like to do like a little bit of sports every day, like 20 minutes. So I have like little moments for myself. I can just sport and feel better again after. But I also like to connect with other people and talk with them and give interviews. And so the last, I think, past 2 months ago, I've cashed out a check at the Parkinson's NL Foundation. So that was really beautiful to do that and able to do that. So yeah, that kind of stuff. I listen to music.
And you mentioned, excuse me, in the video, excuse me, and I know people are highly interested, you were remodeling a house. So that's a big undertaking, also something very exciting. So where are you with it? Are you in it?
Yeah, I've moved in. Yes, I've moved in January. So I'm almost living here like a half year now. So I'm very proud of myself. I was able to do that with my family and work all together on my house. And I'm pretty proud of myself that I did some painting work in my house. I've painted all the walls and the doors and stuff. And yeah, just make it really my own home. And it feels like a home. So that's very nice.
And I think you told me when we talked before that when you remodel the home that you set it up so that it's accessible for you. So you can sit while you're in the kitchen and sit while you're in the shower. Can you talk about that and the importance of making those adjustments in your home?
Yeah, I have to make those adjustments. In the beginning, it was for me a little tough because I have to make those decisions while I'm still young. So I have to relive the beginning of Parkinson's a little bit, and have to accept again the fact that I need those things. So in the beginning, I felt like, I don't know what I think about it, but afterwards, I really glad that I did, because it makes life much easier, and I've got like more energy to do other stuff like cooking or doing groceries, stuff like that. And yeah, it's just part of this life. So there's no other way just to get used to it, but you have to go through those typical downhill moments to enjoy and see the effects of and the benefits of those adjustments.
Well, and I hear that you have harvested your first strawberry that you grew. So that's a huge,
Yes.
wonderful accomplishment.
Yeah, I'm very proud of myself. I didn't forget to water that. So I was like very happy about it and make a photo of it. So I captured that for me.
That's fantastic. Well,
yeah,
I
cool.
want to thank you so much for sharing your story, inspiring everybody to go out there and advocate in their own way, to raise awareness. You're telling your story to people. Brian's out there sharing and working through PMD Alliance to offer the young onset group. So we are so appreciative of Brian as well. And I thank both of you for being a part of this conversation and letting us have the joy of your presence. And of course, we're so thankful for EAD, for Parkinson's TV and University of Rochester for working with us to be able to feature these films with everyone. And I think that we're pretty much at the end of our time. I don't know if there's any more last minute questions. We probably have time for one more. But I guess if not, if each of you could give maybe one parting statement that you would like to share with our folks joining us today, what would that be, Nikita?
My statement. Be proud of yourself, of how far you have come, and take day by day, and just enjoy every little tiny moment. And we are all in this together. We are one Parkinson's family, and we're strong together. So you've got this.
How about you, Brian?
Stay connected. Stay connected to your life. Stay connected to your community. Stay connected to your dreams of what you wanted your life to be. Things can change, obviously, with Parkinson's and other things too. We don't know what tomorrow brings, but stay connected to the people around you that care for you, and make new connections. Stay connected.
Fantastic. I love it. Stay connected. So, all right. So we have something that we do, Nikita, that we invite everyone that's watching today to participate in, and that is giving you the wave of gratitude. So that's for both you and for Brian for sharing your stories today with all of us. and just keeping this conversation going. And thank you again, Iad, wherever you are in all those boxes. Oh, I found you. And thanks everyone for joining us today. Enjoy your weekend, and we will see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Take
Thanks.
care.